Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
Today on CityCast Boise. The new year is already shaping up to be pivotal for the Treasure Valley. Can wages keep up with home prices? What will Trump's presidency mean for Boise's climate plan and our already strained public schools? Plus, we look ahead as Jaialdi makes its grand return. It's Friday, January 3rd. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. Happy Friday, everyone. We're starting the year with something a little different, where we're going to cover some of the biggest stories that we feel happened in Boise this past year, 2024, while also looking forward at what might be some of the biggest stories that will hit the Treasure Valley in 2025. And joining me today is our executive producer, Frankie Barnhill. Thanks for joining me, Frankie.
Yeah, here to read the tea leaves with you. Let's go.
I know. I'm excited. I've got that New Year energy. So let's just really jump into it. The topic that is most evergreen, I think, in the Treasure Valley is always a topic of conversation is housing. And I don't think that 2025 is going to be any different, but there are some really mixed projections for 2025. What have you been seeing, and what do you think stands out about what it looks like housing will look like in Boise in the new year?
Yeah, it's a great question. And truly, I think there's a lot of different factors that need to settle to know exactly what it's going to look like. But as of right now, I mean, things I'm thinking about, of course, are mortgage rates, right? Mm-hmm. Inventory, and honestly, like confidence in the market and people feeling, especially folks who've felt locked out of the market, feeling like, you know, they have job security, that they're settled in Boise, that they want to stay in Boise, that they're ready to commit to buying in Boise. Those are kind of three themes I keep returning to.
Well, and if I could add to that, the price of housing versus wages, because that continues to be an issue in the Treasure Valley, and it doesn't look like it will be changing that much. And we can get more into that later, but I think, yeah, you brought up all of those really great things. It is a weird mix here.
Yeah, totally. And that's where the security feeling really like, not only do I have a good job, but I want to stay in this job, and the job's going to keep up with inflation, and maybe I'll get a promotion in a couple of years. All of those questions that I'm sure a lot of people are feeling those questions very deeply. And I don't know, over the new year, I always like to kind of think about what my year might look like and big decisions and choices. And I was going, I don't even know. It feels like there's so many unknowns still. But one of the things we do know is that the city of Boise is, continues to be really committed and interested in trying to fix this problem under Mayor McLean in particular. The city council, of course, is focused on this. We had the major rezone that occurred a couple years ago, that one of the goals with that was to create more density, which in theory, and make some of those, more onerous zoning codes be less of a barrier for construction companies and for folks to get into housing. It's been a couple years, so maybe 2025 will be the year where the zoning code changes will start to really show up. That's one question/prediction that I have. Maybe toward the end of the year, I could see that helping to increase the housing stock, which then will take pressure off of the very limited supply, perhaps allowing some more people to get in. But, there's so many other pieces of this. What do you think? What else are you thinking about right now with the question of like inventory and like how we're going to get our housing, just have enough housing options and have enough stock to have it be such a competitive market?
Yeah, I think this is a question that Boise really struggles with, and that we've talked about a lot on the show, where they're trying to build higher density housing. We also have all those subdivisions going up around Southeast Boise, around Southwest Boise, that the housing is desperately needed, but it's also going to put major strains on the infrastructure there. Some of these developments are likely going to cost the city $2 million a year, which is quite a bit of money that then cannot be used in, a decade or more for other infrastructure. And so it's kind of feels like this gamble of, do we try, do we pay these expenses now and try to get housing? Do we fall behind on housing? It doesn't seem like there are any clear answers. And we continue to struggle with the lack of affordable housing, which is such a major issue in this area, especially with the ratio of housing prices to income in Idaho being so high. It's, according to the Idaho Press in an article they did in August, it's about 7-1. So the housing prices are 7-1 compared to people's wages. And the goal with having an affordable home is usually 3-1. And that's a lot closer to the national average. So we still are so high when it comes to our housing prices versus wages. And it really, according to different economists, different groups, it doesn't seem like the price of housing will go down that much. It seems like it actually will go up, not as quickly as it's been going up, but will still go up, and that interest rates will stay above 6%. So I know people talk about all the time, they're waiting for the next crash. They're waiting for some, bubble to burst. It doesn't seem like that's going to be happening in 2025. That doesn't seem to be like that will even be an option. And so then we have to face, is this the new normal? And then how do we help people get into housing with this being the new normal? How do we balance this? And I don't think that there are any good answers yet. Is there anything that you're seeing that might give hope to maybe first-time home buyers, millennial home buyers, Gen Z home buyers that really just feel priced out of the market?
Yeah, unfortunately, not a lot. There's a couple of glimmers of hope. I think you're right, though, just to circle back on what you said. There is no housing bubble. This is not 2008. It's a very different market. And if you're waiting for prices to drop by like $100,000 or something, that's not going to happen. No. I will say in the fall, though, just to back up, in October, the median home price in Ada County was $540,000. And in November, it went down by about $15,000. So, perhaps we'll see. We haven't gotten the December numbers yet, so it'll be interesting to see that. There's some seasonality probably that's part of that. But I'm hoping that maybe those are partial indicators that at least the prices aren't rising. Maybe they're not rising as fast, or if they rise, then they come back down a little bit throughout the year. We're certainly not in the same situation when it was really, really, really bad in like 2022, 2023, but we're not going to see this major drop to let people like first-time home buyers get a great deal. There are no great deals. There are just slightly better options and a lot of not great options. So that's,
Do you think that maybe the future of Boise, especially with the new zoning code, the focus on high density housing, do you think that the future of Boise for a lot of people, the reality will be that it will be a very renter heavy city? That there will be lots of rentals, lots of apartments, that actual home ownership will be less and less common in the coming years?
Yeah, I think for sure. And we're seeing, the interest in building apartments, rentals, is definitely there. And there seems to still be demand for those. So, the market needs to change. Like the contractors really need to see I'm always like, why aren't there more like downtown condos for sale when we're talking about density? Like not to rent forever in downtown, but to actually own in downtown, but have it be like, yes, it's going to be more expensive, but still like something that's reasonable-ish, and that just doesn't exist in Boise.
No.
So I think it's bifurcated between the people who are buying homes in Meridian and Canyon County, although that's becoming more expensive by the day. And then the people who are going to be renting, and then of course, then the folks who are dropping all the way into homelessness. And, you're going to be talking soon with the city's director of housing and homelessness policy. And I'm really curious to hear what she has to say about all of this, because getting her view on what the future, what she's kind of seeing as headwinds and concerns, but also potentially some bright spots. Like, late 2024, we saw the Franklin open, and that was a big deal for the city in terms of their affordable housing efforts. And that's an apartment building in the Central Bench. But gosh, it had been talked about since 2020, and it took until the end of 2024 to actually open up and become a place that's affordable for people to live in the Central Bench. And that's just renting. So
yeah,
it's all a lagging indicator. Like we needed 3,000 homes to come online yesterday, and that's not even close to what's going on. Like in November, there were 770 new homes brought into the inventory, which is not keeping up with demand, to say the least.
Yeah. And do you know how many of those were resales, or are they brand new homes, or just homes that became available?
Yeah, good question. Those were the brand new ones. So all told in November, which is the most recent stats we have from the Boise Regional Realtors, is about a little over 1,500 homes were available for sale in November, came online, and a lot of them sold. So yeah, I also wonder, I'm so glad you brought up like the traffic question and like where we're building housing and how we're going to absorb where people are moving and deal with infrastructure concerns. I also, looking out to later this month when President-elect Trump comes into office, there's a couple of very big promises that he's made that are making people in the industry of building homes very nervous. Number one, tariffs. We already saw in the first Trump administration what happened when Canadian tariffs came in against lumber, and that drove housing costs up, which, they had to pass on to the people who were buying the homes. And then the second one, deportation. We know that a lot of folks who are undocumented work in construction, and this is a national issue that could have ripple effects in Idaho and in Boise.
Yeah, it's really interesting you brought up Trump, because I saw on a Business Insider piece that they were actually saying that some speculators, some investors are excited about a Trump presidency and a more Republican Congress, because that means that there typically will be fewer regulations. And so I thought that was a really interesting perspective, because when Boise this year saw what happens when regulations aren't followed. There were some significant accidents and deaths. And so I'm wondering, are we in this place of desperation for housing that we're excited about the opportunity to not have regulations, which could lead to harm or death, or a very poorly built structure that, different codes and regulations don't have to be met. And so then what does that mean? I also wonder if it feels like Boise is really at this turning point where we have to kind of decide who we're going to be. Are we going to have all of this suburban sprawl? What is our city going to look like? But I am becoming worried that it's becoming a matter of survival versus our ideals, that we have ideals about what we'd like to be, but that I think what is going to end up driving how we grow, how we approach housing is going to be about survivability and trying to manage the rising homelessness, the rising evictions, the issues with people being able to afford housing. And so I'm really curious what that is going to look like in this year, since that was such a huge topic in 2024. And now with the Trump presidency and this kind of instability that we're feeling, how will that exacerbate it, or what will that look like?
Yeah, great point. And, some of the Trump policies, if they're put into action, I mean, there'll probably be a lag. It won't be like an immediate effect. Although, I don't know, we'll see if companies react faster than the actual impacts, direct impacts to them, because they're anticipating the changes that could make things come in faster. But in theory, maybe this is like later in the year that if some of these things come to pass, that we'll really see the negative effects. But yeah, as far as the question of the first-time home buyers, I mean, according to like Redfin economists, they're not seeing necessarily it getting much better across the country for first-time home buyers. And Boise generally would reflect that view, I think. So although some people, I mean, I personally, anecdotally, I know of more people who've been on the sidelines who have jumped in, but I still know plenty of people who are like, nope, I can't afford it. And I mean, I'm in my late 30s and my friends are like half renters still, and some of us own homes, but most people don't. And so I feel like that's the story. That's the story of Boise right now.
Yeah, Redfin had an article that echoes exactly what you're saying, that the average age for a first-time home buyer in 2024 was 38 years old, which is a marked change from previous generations and even a decade or 2 decades ago. So I'm really curious to see how this all will play out.
Build a routine with Ollie that supports your wellness needs, like getting your daily vitamins and minerals with Ollie's multi-gummies, or keeping your mood upbeat with all the vitamin D in Hello Happy. Give your gut health some support with probiotics, and wake up feeling refreshed after taking Ollie Sleep. Do wellness on your terms. Find Ollie at a Walmart or Target near you or at ollie.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com right now and get up to 40% off select styles, plus a free professional measure. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Switching gears just a little bit, but staying with a similar theme, I think something that everybody's wondering, it's on everybody's mind, how will the Trump presidency impact Idaho and specifically Boise? And there are a lot of ways that this could happen, especially with our legislature moving much more far right and kind of aligning themselves with some of the things that Trump promised during his campaign. So Frankie, I'm really curious, what are some of the things you're keeping your eye on that are interesting or concerning, or something that just you really are focusing on in 2025 that you wonder how the Trump presidency will impact it?
Yeah, great question. Definitely is the looming one on a lot of people's minds. Climate change. That's my #1 topic that I'm thinking about right now in terms of City of Boise's very aggressive, very ambitious climate goals. We're approaching, there's a marker in 2035 we need to hit. There's for the ones that are out. And I think that the question of, Mayor McLean actually had a great interview with a friend of the show, George Prentice, right after the election. And he asked her about, because she had a really well-aligned relationship with the Biden administration, of course, the mayor it's a nonpartisan role, but we know that Mayor McLean's a Democrat.
Yeah.
And so seeing, what she was able to get done in alignment with the Biden administration. Now, of course, during the COVID years when there was a lot of money flowing from the federal government that trickled down, and Boise definitely took advantage of a lot of that. I'm thinking about, like, for example, there was a $3.5 million EV grant that came through from the feds, and that helped to increase infrastructure in Boise for electric vehicles. That kind of thing may or may not happen under a Trump administration. I have to bring up Amtrak because I think, transit's obviously very tied in with the question of how to tackle climate change, how to get people out of their cars, how to reduce emissions. And my desire to see the Amtrak line return from Salt Lake through Boise, connecting us to the West Coast. I feel like those dreams are diminishing, though. we'll see. Maybe there can be some other adjustments, but those are some kind of like big topics that I'm thinking about. And it just really feels like climate change policy is going to shift from the federal government to the states. And we know that Idaho, the Idaho legislature, is not really interested in tackling climate change, to say the least. So that kind of leaves the city a little bit on its own.
Yeah. How do you think that will impact Mayor McLean's climate goals? Like, she's been very specific about what she wants to reach and when she wants to get there. She has very specific benchmarks. Do you think this will shift that timeline or heavily impact it?
I think it could. I certainly think, obviously, without an infusion of federal grants to tackle this problem from all kinds of angles, because that's what's needed, is all kinds of solutions to address a massive, massive problem. I think that could have an impact, and I think it's going to be kind of a return to during the first Trump administration, when certainly the Idaho legislature was very conservative then. This was largely before Mayor McLean's time. She was elected in 2019. But, a resurgence of private industry. Like, does private industry care about climate change? And how can they partner with the city, nonprofit work, collaborations there, grant work? But again, you're not necessarily going to be seeing the same kind of grants coming from the federal government, and you're not going to be seeing it coming from the state either.
I think those are all really important things that we're going to need to keep our eyes on. And really, it is kind of up in the air how those will be impacted and what that's going to look like in 2025, or if we're not going to see those repercussions maybe for a few more years. Something that I'm very nervous about going into this legislative session, especially with a new President Trump administration, is our education system in Idaho. Now, with the Idaho Constitution, we absolutely have to have public education. It's in Article 9, Section 1. The legislature has to establish and maintain a general, uniform, thorough system of public, free, common schools. And that should be, a basic read, easy to understand. But a big push that we've seen around the country is for these vouchers. And they're, they have all kinds of names. There's rebranding happening because vouchers have gotten a pretty bad rap. But all this rebranding about grants or, tax credits or whatever they are. But basically what it is that money would be taken from the public school system into private schools or homeschools or to other schooling situations from the public school funds. And it would take that money away from these public schools, this public school system that we have to have. And in many cases, it goes to religious education or students who have been homeschooled or private schooled and have never even been part of the public school system. And we're seeing this in other states. We're seeing the outcome, and it is pretty drastic. When they're being passed, a lot of times the lobbyists for these groups are saying, it's only going to cost like $65 million, $50 million. Arizona passed it a few years ago saying that it would cost them $65 million. And right now they're sitting at $429 million, with some low income schools saying that they are going to struggle to make it through the school year. Now, Idaho already is 50th in the nation for per student spending. We spend about $8,000 per student. The national average is $13,000. I mean, we spend less than like West Virginia, Kentucky. Yeah, right. So already we are not spending that much on our schools, on our school systems. And from what I've heard from different legislators, the voucher lobbyists are going to be coming hard this legislative session to get this passed. Now, they've been trying to pass these for years, and it keeps getting shot down, but our legislature has shifted quite a bit more right. And so I'm very concerned about this impact and how it is going to affect our schools and our ability to fund our schools. And, we've seen how this is playing out in Arizona. Similar thing in Indiana in the 2023-2024 school year. They also spent $439 million on this voucher program from public schools. And most of that money went to 3,700 families that earn more than $200,000. And so what we're seeing with this is a shift away from schools that service low-income families that need 504s, IEPs. These private schools, these religious schools often don't have to have that. Right. And then add on top of that, the Trump administration that has said one of their goals is to get rid of the Department of Education. And so where we already live in a state that underfunds our schools, has low spending per pupil, there is a massive effort to take even more of that money from our public schools to private schools, to homeschools. And then we have a president who says that he wants to get rid of the Department of Education. I am very concerned about what education is going to look like in this state.
Yeah. And I mean, the legislative session starts next week. We'll see how fast these bills are introduced. Sounds like there's plenty waiting in the wings, and they're ready to jump on them. And we'll be following this and telling people about how to write to their legislators or show up for hearings. But you're right, Lindsay. I feel like the momentum is definitely there for these voucher programs, whatever we want to call them, and the pull away from public schools. It's something that people should definitely be paying attention to.
Yeah, it's something that even if you don't have kids, even if you are retired, you want to live in a population with educated people. You just do. You want to have educated people to help you with your healthcare, with all the aspects of your life. And so if we defund our schools, that is going to have a direct impact on the quality of the society that we live in. And I am quite worried about this.
Okay, Lindsay, we always do pick of the week on our Friday shows, but, kind of we're doing this fun, like look back, look ahead, what's happened, what will happen. What's your, pick of the year? Can we say that? What's yours?
Yeah. So for my pick of the year, I wanted to look back. This was a tough decision. Lots of people that could have been the pick of the year. But for 2024, I really want to give it to the Idaho Coalition for Safe Healthcare doctors and providers and the plaintiffs of all of the Idaho abortion lawsuits. It has been a rough year for reproductive care in Idaho. And I am so impressed with the work that the ICSH has done. They're really pushing the envelope in a way that I haven't seen a lot of providers do historically, to really educate legislators, to educate the public, and to really speak out about what these abortion bans mean for healthcare in this state. And then also, I do want to give a shout out to the Atkins v. State of Idaho. There are 4 women who went through really horrific miscarriage and abortion care stories. Many of them had to travel out of state. Many of them were risking their health, their lives, their fertility, and they are not being quiet about it. They have chosen to be plaintiffs in this lawsuit and have very publicly spoken about these very emotional and difficult situations that they were in, trying to restore reproductive rights to Idaho. And that is incredibly brave, incredibly strong. And another shout out to Matsumoto v. Labrador. That has been another ongoing lawsuit that has really put Idaho in the national spotlight and has, really subjected the plaintiff to a lot of hate and a lot of scorn. And I just want to give them all a shout out, because in 2024, in a year where things looked bleak for reproductive care in Idaho, they were brave, they were bold, they spoke out, and we definitely need more of that in the coming years.
Yeah, gosh, great point. I mean, the trauma that they had to relive on the stand, especially the people involved, the plaintiffs in Atkins v. State of Idaho, horrific. Stories that they had to retell to try and make changes so that people in Idaho don't have to go through what they went through.
Yeah. So a shout out to all of their bravery and boldness. We need more of that in 2025. We got to carry that energy with us in 2025. And Frankie, I'm pretty sure your pick of the year is looking forward. So what is something in 2025 that is your pick of the year?
Yeah. Okay. I'm getting us into, it's January, it's cold, it's inversion-y, it's whatever. Fast forward to late July, and it is hot. It is vibrant in downtown Boise, and we're at the Bass Block celebrating Jaialdi. Jaialdi is coming back. It's been 10 years since the Bass community was able to do this big, gigantic celebration. Because of COVID, postponed it. And now it's finally back. And not only is it back, but we're getting international recognition, not just national recognition, but international recognition. The National Geographic magazine put Boise on a list of, quote, best of the world, which feels like, oh my gosh, as a place to visit in 2025, specifically for Jaialdi. So people from the Spanish Basque Country primarily will be coming over. They'll be doing like traditional Basque dances and music, but also like modern Basque performers will be coming, which I'm really interested in. Of course, there's going to be tons of food, great food, delicious drinks, people speaking Basque. It's going to be such a party. And there'll be sports. They do like this crazy like He-Man kind of sport where they carry around this huge metal cylinder or something and challenge each other to who can carry the most or something like that.
Feats of strength.
Yes, feats of strength. Can't wait for that. Anyway, it's going to be an exciting time, and I can't wait for late July. Mark your calendars. Definitely, we're probably going to be talking about it a lot this year.
Well, and the people who plan and put this on put so much work into it, so much planning. I mean, people I know who were involved were already planning this last year. And so there's a lot of work involved in it. And we are so lucky that it's just right at our front door and we can participate and be involved. It really is such a cool thing that Boise gets.
Absolutely.
Well, Frankie, I think this was a fun and interesting way to start the first Friday of the new year. I loved your pick of the year. It is definitely going to be a highlight of CityCast, and I'm looking forward to all the things that 2025 brings.
Yeah, here we go. Get your caffeine, take a deep breath. We're in it.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. The show is produced by Evelyn Avitia, Frankie Barnhill, Lizzie Goldsmith, Francisco Kilgore, and me, Lindsay Van Allen. Blake Hunter writes our Hey Boise newsletter, and our music is by Up Is The Down Is The. If you enjoyed our show today, leave us a review. It helps other people find us. We'll be back on Monday with another great local story. You won't want to miss it.